that we've seen there. Why is that? I want to quickly go into a map for you because that will tell you a story. Let's isolate the Asawase from the Ashanti region. And it's difficult to spot Asawase because in the Ashanti region, you have loads and loads. In fact, the region with the maximum number of the most constituencies in the country. But it's somewhere in the middle. I want to expand this. Follow me as we track it. And that is the little green island in there. Little green island in there is Asawase. Let's bring it up a bit more and let's track it. And that is where I'm talking about. I want to quickly expand this a bit more so we appreciate what I'm talking about. This green island here, surrounded by blue, is Asawase. It's an island because it is one of the few areas in the Ashanti region where NDC holds, and there are a few others. So you have New Edribiase, and I'll come to the New Edribiase story shortly because it's a very fascinating one. There is Setra Dumase and Setra Framplains. These are the areas, but this is the most talked about for a lot of reasons. This year, even more so than most other years, because I want to pull up, this is the 2016 parliamentary contest, which you see in your far end there. Muntaka Mubarak secured that victory again, 53.6%. That's against the MPP's 45.9%. Now, this won't tell you too much of a story until you pull up the trends, because if you pull up the trend, I want to center the trend a bit here, and I want to take the map away because it's getting in the way. I wanted to focus a bit for me on this area here. Now, focus for me on this particular trend, and I want to circle what I want to what I want you to pay attention to. Now, if you this has changed because I touched the map. I want to pull it back and then go back into Asawase for us to focus on. Now, the key issue that I wanted to focus on and bring your attention to, if you go back into Asawase and pull up the trend, you will observe that it's an NDC stronghold, as we've said. But in 2016, Muntaka Mubarak lost his biggest margin yet, apart from what we saw in 2004, right? And which means this year is going to be very keen. And that is the year also where the MPP candidate got closest to him in terms of the contest, the race to win the particular parliamentary seat. Focus here for me. Now, this is the key area that I want to focus. 53.6%. The only time that he's gotten as low a mark as that was in 2008. And so that is a key thing to watch. And of course, you saw 2004 as well, that playing out. That is why this year is very keen, because the gap has narrowed. And so this year, the contest is absolutely even more keen. But there's a lot more to tell you about the story unfolding there, because it's become one of the marginal seats that is possibly in that bracket of flipping, and the MPP is putting a lot of resources in there and has over the last few weeks. I want to take you back to the Electoral Commission, and we'll return to this to explain the contest on why this is becoming very keen as Asawase. But I want to go to Gary, and Gary is standing by in our strong room, if I'm not mistaken, with the very latest on the issues coming in. Also, before I bring in Gary, I want to go to some breaking developments that is happening with Wings, ghastly Wings. We understand is disrupting polling, with Precious Semabo joining us with the latest on this. Precious, we understand the Wings are upsetting and is disrupting polling. Polling has ended a few minutes back. How bad is it?
Yeah, so Evans, the situation is that bad. Now it is raining heavily. Now, almost all the tents the temporary tents that were erected for the exercise to take place under has been brought down by the wind. But the presiding officers and the other EC officials, including the party agents, decided to move under a building, a story building, which is close to the polling center. We had about 7 polling centers at this particular area known as Victoria Park here in the Sunyani East constituency. Now, so the whole exercise has been disrupted, and they had to move away to a domed building to seek shelter, making the sorting and the counting very, very difficult for the EC officials. They are cramped in a very, very small corner, the corridor of a story building, and that is where they are trying with the agreement with all the party agents to try and then see how they can go through the sorting and the counting process. So what they've resorted doing is that they are no longer pouring the vote cast onto the table, but what they are doing is that one person brings it out from the ballot box and then show it to them. If it is a box or a paper printed for NDC, it is given to one person, and if it is for NDPP, it is also given to another person in that order. So they are just trying to adjust and make do with the current situation. It started with a strong wind, it is raining heavily, and they had to do something in order to go through the sorting and the counting process after the exercise came to an end at exactly 5 p.m., just about 2-3 minutes thereafter. And then the whole weather situation changed drastically. And this is what is happening here in the Sunyani East constituency.
Okay, yeah, Precious Senator, thank you very much. And that is the Sunyani East constituency. Well, of course, as we've heard there, strong winds are disrupting polling, which has come to an end. You cannot count ballots within a context of strong ghastly winds because you risk the ballots being blown away, and that can cause a lot of disruption to the very smooth process that we've had in that particular part of town. And I guess he just explained that the EC officials are doing the right thing, taking precautions and waiting for things to calm down a bit, and also taking shelter so they count this properly and get everybody else sign on to that dotted line before the pink sheets become official. I want to take you to because Rafiq Salam is joining us where we understand counting has started. One of the things about Ghanaian election, a unique feature of it is that counting is done in the full glare of people. And it's one of those things we are proud about because it adds to the transparency of the process. And that is happening right now in that WA constituency where my colleague is standing by. Rafiq, you're seeing a lot there, and I'm interested. I'm sure our viewers, of course, will also want to experience this process again. It's happening, another election year. Walk us through what you're seeing.
The issues here is that the West Central constituency, there are 202 polling stations, and I can tell you that voting they're peaceful. But I can still report to you that there are some queues are still at some places they haven't closed. A place like Dampui Pala on the insurance road, voting is still going on, and other few places that voting is currently ongoing in the West Central constituency. But I can also report to you that in the Sasala West constituency, several polling centers, voting is still going on. They had problems with their biometric devices, and then also as a result of that, the voting was slow. And so majority of the polling centers in the Sasala West constituency of the Upper West region, I can report that not more than half of the people have so far been able to vote in the Sasala West. And so the both political parties, like the major political parties, the NDC and MPP, they're encouraging the people to stay on the line as far as tomorrow, and that they will have that opportunity of voting. So here is very peaceful here in the West Central constituency of the Upper West region.
And Rafiq, you also heard about a community in the Upper West region that says they will not vote. Did that change in the course of the day?
That community is in the West district. It's called Bolingin. Bolingin is on the way from Wa to Kumasi. When you get to Ga, the first community, Bolingin, they've complained that for several years they have not gotten electricity, they don't have good drinking water, and then also the roads are not good. Remember, some few weeks ago, the DC of the area, together with 40 others, were attacked by suspected robbers. And so the community people said that they won't vote. Here, the electoral materials were sent there, the electoral officers were there, but the people failed to come out to vote in that particular community.
Rafiq, thank you very much. And that's not the only story we've had today about communities that saying they won't vote and they were not going to queue to participate in this year's elections. Talking about queuing, by the way, polling ended 40 minutes plus ago. Here, of course, in this particular segment, we're calling it post-closing. But as Martina Bugri reports, and she joins me right now on our screens, 40 minutes on, people are still in the queue, more than 300 people still waiting to cast their ballots, and every single individual who was in the queue before 5, we expect will be allowed to vote. Martina.
Yes, Evans, we are at Vovo Guma, a community in the Tamale North constituency, and we are the Anglican school where voting is taking place. We have a lot of people here who are yet to vote. We are told that over 380 people are yet to cast their vote. Now, this is not the only polling center in this constituency with this issue. Earlier, we were at Fo and Balahe. These communities also have very long queues. At Fo, we had about 340 people yet to vote, and that was after 5. We are here again, and then we have about 380 people yet to vote.
Okay. But the EC, I'm sure, and I can see behind you the long queues there, but it remains pretty calm. EC definitely assuring people they'll vote. I guess that is what is instilling this sense of calm. Did people arrive late? Is that what it is? Did people just show up late, or the queue has been this long since morning?
No, the queue has been this long since morning. We are told that it's been slow with the verification machine since morning, and they started late as well, and that could be the reason why we still have very long queues here. Fortunately, we have the Member of Parliament for Tamale South, Tamale North, Alasan Suyini, who's also on the rounds, and we've met him at the Wovo Anglican Primary School. Yes, sir. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Martina.
You have seen this queue. We have similar queues somewhere else. Are you worried?
Very, very worried. I think that the situation is just unacceptable. I mean, this is a polling station that serves a number of communities, and so with the voter population at this particular station exceeding 700, the expectation was that it would have been divided into A and B. I'm sure if they did that, we wouldn't have had the situation that we are witnessing currently. It's past 5 p.m., and my understanding is that some of the voters have had to even travel back to their communities after the frustration they went through this afternoon and were unable to vote, because when it gets dark, they may not be able to get back to their communities. And so I think this is unacceptable. It's simply unfortunate that we are having to deal with this situation.
We were at the Fo village. We saw similar numbers and similar concerns. What are you going to do about it, considering that you are contesting?
Well, currently what we are doing is to ensure that all those in the queue, exercise their franchise. I mean, we have similar reports coming to us from Ward K area where people are still in long queues. And it is all as a result of the, partitioning of the polling stations. We thought that the increase in number of polling stations in this constituency was going to lead to shorter queues. But unfortunately, somehow, I don't know how they managed to allow certain areas to still be concentrated in the way that they are concentrated. I mean, if you observed at 4, it was the same thing. 700 people having to vote at one polling station without, making provision to divide it into A and B. Meanwhile, you go to some other polling stations and then you have just 200 or 100 people, on the register to vote. And these are even stations within the center of town. So you wonder why the thought was not why they didn't think about, creating an opportunity for these communities that are sparse, to have A and B, maybe even closer to their communities, but concentrate them at this one spot.
It's like it was not anticipated, so preparations were not made. The place looks dark. I wonder what is going to happen, how they are going to cope with some of these lapses. Now, you are talking of other places. Have you visited these places, or they are just hearsay you are reporting?
I've visited almost all the polling stations. I've looked at the numbers, and that is why I'm able to tell you that at certain places, there were just about 100. At 12 midday, some stations were almost done with voting. And that is what beats my imagination, why they did that for certain communities, but failed to do it where I believe it is most needed. But I have, provided some lighting system for some of the communities that I know are having this similar problem. So we are hoping that the people will remain patient, those in the queue will remain patient, and then voting will conclude, and then we will have some improved lighting around. You can see that the people in the community, through my support, have been able to put up this lighting system there. We are also bringing in some street lights to make sure that the visibility is okay for them to do the counting when they finally get done with the vote.
Thank you very much. You heard the Member of Parliament for Tamale North, Mr. Alhassan Suhiene. He's obviously not happy about the numbers that are yet to go through, even though polls have ended. So, Evans, that's what we have here at the Tamale North constituency.
Right now, and as you can see, my colleague Ernest Mary is standing by with the very latest on that. Ernest, we understand that there have been some pelting of stones at Ododo, which has been full of incidents today. What triggered this?
And the incident happened. It unfolded right before me. Two groups of young men throwing stones at each other. They had taken, pieces of these concrete slabs just at the shore there, and they were throwing it at each other. The police had to fire some shots just to disperse them, and this is the second time the police had to fire. In fact, just before 5 p.m., there was some exchange between the police and some residents. You can see that the entire place, the forecourt of the city engineers, has been cordoned off with a lot of police presence. There's a police armory car also here. It is because the police wanted to clear the place and make it less congested, decongest the place, so we can have a very serene atmosphere for the counting. And remember, Evans, that this is also the place, as we speak, it is still a polling station with about 6 centers. But eventually, in a few minutes, once the counting is done, it is going to be the collation center for the constituency. And so already the people were massing up. The police thought that they should drive away some of the people so they can have space and do the counting peacefully because of the peculiar nature of this place. Some residents fired gunshots. The police fired back. It went on for about 2 minutes before the close of poll, and then we had this incident also happening just here. So there's going to be a lot of action here at the city engineers here at Ododo. There have been spontaneous jubilation by some of the residents around, and what they are saying is that their favorite candidate, Ni Lante Vanderpoel, has won a few of the polling stations. But Evans, come with me in here because, and let me say that the incident which happened brought a lot of my colleagues out of the main compound of the city engineers. I want to take you inside where the sorting and the counting is happening here at the city engineers. And like I mentioned, Evans, very soon it is going to be the collation center for the sorting out and the counting indeed is happening. Remember, there were 6 centers here at the city engineers. So you have the first center there with the counting happening. A very small group over there, and then there is another here also doing the counting. So multiple, centers, 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6 of the centers right here at the city engineers. Very soon, once they are done with the counting, the results declared by the polling, the presiding officer, they will clear up the place and then begin to receive ballot boxes from various and 60 polling stations here at Ododo. This is where we are going to have the collation for the constituency, and eventually the declaration. We're going to tell you who is winning the Ododo constituency. This year it has been heated between the two, between the cousins, Ni Lante Vanderpoel and Ni Lante Bannerman. Remember, in 2016, Ni Lante Vanderpoel won by a difference of 10,000. That was the huge gap. It remains to be seen if Ni Lante Bannerman will overturn this, Evans.
Ernest, thank you very much. And of course, as Ernest has just indicated, we'll be using this map here to track for you Ododo. And the map will be filling, turning blue and green as and when the results coming. And so Ododo is a key place to watch. And that collation center will become a beehive of activity very soon. And stay with us because we'll come back to you quite often to get an update once you get a clearer picture. I want to cross over to the central region right now because my colleague Kojo Nyako is standing by. This is another swing region. And as you can see in your shot there, Winston Amwa is ready with his panel, a crack panel of experts. And I'm just delighted that all of them get to join us here on your election headquarters. But before we go to Studio 997, let's bring in Kojo Nyako, who's joining us right now with the very latest from that part of the country that will, without a doubt, decide this year's elections at the presidential level. Kojo?
222 out of 351.
Hello, Evans. Hello, Evans.
And people are getting excited about the impending declarations of results, parliamentary and presidential.
Hello, Evans.
Yes, Kojo. I can hear you loud and clear, and I can see the action behind you.
At the old High Court polling station, currently what you are witnessing on your screens right now is a counting of ballots for the parliamentary election. The presidential has already been counted, and then President Akufo-Addo, the NPP candidate, got 156, the NDC candidate got 120, and then they switched on to the counting of the parliamentary election. Is gone on generally smooth. On the other side of this place, as the counting is going on, eager faces of residents who are eagerly waiting for the outcome of the elections. They have been stationed here the entire day, and so there is something that separates them from where the counting is done, so that there will be some kind of order. But Evans, I tell you that in the Cape Coast South constituency, in the 2016 elections, the NPP presidential candidate won here, but they lost the parliamentary seat. So it remains to be seen what the outcome of this election will be. We are in for 112 polling stations, and a lot of them are done, and counting is underway at the various polling stations there. The ones that have not finished, you can count them in 5 minutes. They are just a handful, and so very soon the collation would be done at the collation center here at the Cape Coast, and everything has gone on smoothly without any incident in the Cape Coast South constituency I have been to. Elsewhere in the other parts of the central region, the Chifue, Timoka, and the Himalawa, the Intra, Evans, it was raining, so it rained about 3 hours, but they managed to put a lot of things together to ensure that the voting went on. When I was leaving that place, in fact, voting had ended in a lot of the polling stations in those places. And in the central region, generally things have been smooth, with the exception of some few hiccups in the Ewutu Senya area. But here, down south, everything has been done. So let's catch some of the sounds from the presiding officer who is counting what the ballot has been.
114, 115, 116, 117.
So Evans, so it's an interesting spectacle here. People are rushing here. Those who voted and went to the house, they are now coming in. So the crowd is building. They would want to see what the outcome really was for the presidential and what the outcome really would be for the parliamentary. And so that is what I can report here from the Cape Coast South constituency.
Thank you very much, Kojo Nyako. This is one of those things that you can't help but love about the process when it ends. It's just the building anticipation, the anxiety, the excitement that builds when you begin to hear the numbers, as you've just witnessed of course, in that Cape Coast constituency. More of that. We'll be focusing on the big picture, though, with the actual numbers when they come in. Our map will begin to fill for you. Let me just illustrate for you what you begin to see when the numbers come in. This is grey at this particular moment, and it's going to begin to fill for you very quickly across the country when the numbers start coming in from parliamentary, but also from presidential. And we'll fill this. Blue means NPP has won. Green means NDC has won. And of course, we'll play with this. We'll tell the stories as it comes, all here on your election headquarters. I'll be doing this with Winston Amwa. And guess what? He is our Studio 997, the best political team anywhere is standing by right now with a crack team of guests we have assembled for this particular segment. This obviously is where the real deal is, where the results coming. And as you can see there, you have Emmanuel Bombande, Professor Ajimandria, and of course Winsing himself with a host of crack experts to now digest the day's issues and look ahead to what is yet to come to decide the fate of the two gentlemen seeking an election.
In studio, you have to my right, that's Mr. Emmanuel Bombande. Now, he is a UN Senior Mediation Advisor. Then to my immediate left is Professor Bafo Ajimandria, who is a former UN Senior Governance Advisor, and Dr. DeGraft Johnson Owusu-Ansah is a mathematician and a statistician, a senior lecturer at the Department of Actuarial Science of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Now, before we cross over to the Joy News studio, they'll be telling us their initial assessment of the whole process, and then we'll get back to you, Evans. Let me start off with you, Dr. DeGraft Johnson. Let me say good evening to all of you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome. Dr. DeGraft Johnson, your assessment of the process so far in a minute. How's it been for you?
So far, so good. I've had a time to go around in Accra, visiting some polling stations to see what is going on. One thing is clear, the design method that the EC actually chose has made in such a way that there were less queue in most of the areas. In fact, it has facilitated for us to be able to adhere to the COVID-19 protocol.
And when you say the design method that the EC chose, what method are you talking about?
The EC actually did not clamp the polling stations. So the numbers that they do have on polling stations are quite small. I think we've been told it's about 790 for each polling station. So you have a lot of polling stations, more than what it previously used to be. This has necessitated the area in such a way that people goes there, and from some calculations that we've done, within 3 to 5 minutes, you are done voting and you are supposed to leave the premises, which has helped in the COVID-19 protocols actually.
Great. Let me get you, Professor Bafo Ajimandria. What's been your assessment of the process?
Yes, I didn't have the opportunity to go around the various locations, but I did follow the media, this channel plus all the other channels. I was just rotating from station to station. But overall, it seems to me that the process has been quite smooth. Of course, there have been a number of incidents. Of course, I followed the report of the CODEO, the interim report, that gave a fair assessment from their perspective and generally commended the work of the EC and Ghanaians generally. So CODEO gave that verdict. I'm also aware of the complaints registered by the opposition party for certain infractions that they have detected. But I think if you look at the general picture, I'm pretty comfortable that this process has gone on well. Taking into account the kinds of tension that we had, the anxieties and the suspicions and mistrust that were displayed by contestants. I think, by and large, if the counting goes well and the decision is welcomed by all parties, then I'm happy that we have done well.
Mr. Bombande, you have the final preliminary comments.
Yes, I join my colleague panelists to appreciate the relative smoothness of the polls so far, and Ghanaians are demonstrating a very good example and exercise in democratic practice. I look at some of the incidences that we have been followed, and what I have done is to follow the situation rooms, WANEP, National Peace Council, the National Commission for Civic Education, and they have reported incidences that I believe would, in my view, be followed at the immediate level, but also what kind of lessons emerge. But the point I wanted to make is we are at the point of now building the bridge to what happens now post the election day into the result counting. And how we are able to look at that is important, because if you look at the incidences that have been reported, I'm happy with the way the police are dealing with some of them. I'm happy that even where citizens apprehended somebody for wrongdoing, they immediately called on the police to handle it. And they did not take it upon themselves to do anything. And I'm encouraged by that. So I'm encouraged by the role of the police in ensuring that they are doing what must be done. That in turn is making people to be more relaxed and to have confidence that the police are on the ground and doing their work. And to that extent, therefore, how will this translate into the vote counting? And if I were to finish on this point, I take seriously what the leadership of our parties did on Friday, the 4th of December. The president leading the New Patriotic Party, the former president, the National Democratic Congress. Now, that peace pledge that they committed to has not just a significance to us internally as Ghana, but also internationally. What the message is for it to reflect across the nation, so that at the end of the day, it's not just our leaders who were pledging themselves, but the pledge was for all of us. And all of us must conduct ourselves in such a way that we draw on that commitment and allow what my colleague panelists have just been saying to be predominant as we begin to count the votes. And the reason why that is important is everybody's looking at us to truly be a good example.
Okay.
And to that extent, I want to see the pledge translated now to all of us as a people, beyond just at the level of our leaders. And what that means is, if there is anybody thinking about doing anything to disrupt the counting, to introduce foreign material in a ballot box, you are not a true member of your party, because you are negating the commitment of your leader in committing to a pledge that was witnessed globally.
Right. Thank you very much, Emmanuel Bombande, with a final, bit of initial comment here. These are just the initial comments. So what this means is that when we return, we're going to analyze the whole process in depth. They'll be telling us the assessment of the whole process, starting from the beginning in the morning to, now that counting has begun. Some polling centers are still voting because, one, electoral materials didn't get there early. Two, the fact that people showed up before 5 p.m. And if you're in the queue before 5 p.m., according to our laws, you should be allowed to vote. So take it over, Evans Mensah, until you come back to us. 5 p.m. according to our laws, you should be allowed to vote. So take it over, Evans Mensah, until you come back to us.
Okay, thank you very much, Wingsting. We're going to come back for the analysis. But there's a lot happening across the country right now. As you imagine, polls have closed. And one of the places I want to take you is this particular place here in the Greater Accra region. This is the Adentan constituency. One of those key areas we are watching for you. Focus here. That's one of the areas I wanted to pay attention to this year that we'll be focusing on. Adenta, my former playground, is going to be key, and we are watching that very closely. What you see on the screen there is a parliamentary for the year of 2004. But this year is going to be a race between, of course, Barbia Samoa and, of course, the Mr. Ramadan, which we are watching very, very closely. I want to take you into that constituency right now because of its swing characteristics. In fact, it's even done sketch and blouse before in 2004 when Adenta came into play, carved out of Ashaiman constituency for the very first time. As you can see, Joseph Gakpo is primed and ready to walk us through everything that's going to happen from now to the elections and the results are declared. Joseph, nice to see you. I can see a lot of action in the backdrop. Tell me about it.
So, Evans, at the moment, I'm at the Adenta Barrier Police Station. Now, there are 3 different polling centers right here at this police station. The voting here ended a few minutes after 5 o'clock. The voting actually started on time here. So by the time it was after 5 p.m., a lot of their work had been done already. They are done with the sorting. The counting has begun. And the first votes have actually been tallied. In one of the 3 polling centers here, the results of the presidential are out. Of course, we are all clear in our minds that it doesn't represent what the results will look like eventually, because we're speaking of more than 130,000 votes that are being cast in this particular constituency. But from the results that have come in so far, this particular polling center, the results show that the NPP got 231 votes, while the NDC got 259 votes. I've just been corrected that it was actually 232 for the NPP and 259 for the NDC. The other polling centers, as far as the parliamentary and all the others, are actually still being counted. Earlier in the day, I had the opportunity to interact with the NDC's candidate for the area, Adamu Ramadan, who is very confident of victory. He's been referring how close the polls were in the previous election, with his contender beating him with just around a little over 50% of votes, while he got 45% plus, indicating that he thinks that this shows that's a very close seat that could flip. He'd been pointing to what he said had been intelligence that they had gathered, that some people may mar the processes going into the end of the polls and all. But he says he's asked his constituents to actually exercise restraint, and so all the necessary efforts will be made to ensure peace. So we're waiting to see how